Hey, welcome back to Garbro's Field Desk. We are very behind, so I'll keep this nice and quick. If you want to support the channel, please check out Redcon 1 for protein and supplement needs. Check out the coffee and the kind of general store in the coffee as well. Discord link down below. Please comment down below. Here's chapter 12. Who are these jokers?
Rockets!
Helena screamed, diving down behind a shattered market stall as everyone else dove for whatever cover they had near them.
Rockets! Why is it always rockets?
Said missile howled overhead and blew dust away from her cover, thudding against the armor front plate of the updated half-track for a split second before detonating with an air-rending explosion. Shards of metal plating and engine parts tanged and rattled across the cobblestone streets as the half-track's life was snuffed from it, only managing to scuttle backwards around a nearby corner before the engine coughed its last. Helena craned her head around as shards of wood rained down upon her, waving to the senior satyr medic dragging a rifleman towards the half-track, the driver frantically pouring water onto the licking flames that peeped out from the engine compartment.
Get down! They're in the windows!
This whole street is nothing but windows, elf.
The satyr spat out, but pumped her hooves across the cobblestones to get behind cover faster.
Momoy!
Helena howled, crawling along on her hands and knees towards the Oni.
Momoy, the windows! Rockets!
Momoy swung his steaming barrel towards where he saw the trailing smoke from the AT-4 launch and began to pump rounds into the windows, glass shattering and raining down onto the street. He turned, looking to the Yamato some feet away and calling out to him over the thud of machine gun fire.
Spoober, can you get over here and help me cover the windows?
Cover the windows? I'm trying to cover the damn street! Spuru yelled back, ducking as a tracer flew past a stone bench cover.
What about the half-track gunner?
Momoy bellowed back in reply, spying another tube poking out of a window and turning the entire area into a poorly made skylight. Spuru jabbed a thumb over his shoulder as he tossed a red-hot barrel onto the cobblestones, Zanya sliding a fresh barrel into the MG3. Well, fuck me, he's over there. Let me ask him. Spuru looked over his shoulder at the bloody, ruined remains of the gunner who had taken a direct AT-4 hit while manning the half-track turret earlier in the firefight. Hey, do you mind covering the windows? Thanks, friend.
What?
Momoy grunted, half turning to see the shattered piece of leg and the remnants of the Valley Elf's torso. He blanched, staring at the body for a moment before turning back to his M240 Bravo.
Right. Everyone's busy.
Momoy, who all is left?
Helena howled, crawling up next to the pile of brass beside Momoy and throwing her empty magazine into the road.
We're not outnumbered, right?
Momoy looked over to the burning Puma, the ruined half-track, then to the gaggle of wounded and dead auxiliary troopers being arranged by the medics. Helena popped her rifle up over the edge of Momoy's rubble defilade and squeezed off shots as she counted the flashes coming from windows and down at their old firing position.
What do you mean,
Well, it's not good.
Momoy stated matter-of-factly, firing the last 8 rounds of his belt and then pulling a new belt into place on the receiver.
We're gonna be blood dry here in a few minutes likely.
Helena spotted a cheeky gaggle of southern elves setting up a small mortar and braved the fire, knowing what would happen if they got the tube running. Rounds zipped and cracked by uncomfortably close as she tried to calm herself and aim down her sights as true as she could. The vague shape of someone's field cap crossed the flat of her front sight post and she squeezed. Even at this distance, she could see the vibrant spray of brain matter, the plume of blood, and the cap whirling off into the air to land onto the street. Helena hunkered down further as another sharpshooter sent a round so close to her own head that her field cap moved, and she squeezed again, plugging one of the mortar crewmen in the chest. She saw a flash from further down the street, and then her face was alight with pain. The sharpshooter's next shot punched into the front sight post of her Daewoo rifle, shattering it. The malformed lead and broken steel continued down and plowed through the piston and handguard with a cracking whiz of metal and wood, sending shards of her own weapon careening into Helena's face. Helena cried out and fell back, clutching at her face as blood poured from between her fingers. Momoy looked at Helena for only a moment before 2 more rounds thudded into Momoy's chest. The Oni gave a hoarse cough as he fell down onto his back with a dull thud, coughing and scrabbling at the 2 burning holes, one of them burbling hot blood. Helena continued to rapidly kick her legs, her boots skidding on the cobblestones as she screamed, the burning metal searing at her nerves like tiny hot pokers.
We're collapsing, for fuck's sake! Get more troopers down here!
Eldehinda bellowed out to Limerick as she grabbed both Momoy and Helena in her bloody fists.
Spuru! Get out of line of sight of the street now!
That's this place. Spuru growled, hefting up the MG3 onto his shoulder as heat waves warbled the air near the barrel. Zanya unfurled another belt of ammunition and flung it around her neck, grabbing 2 more cans of ammo.
We fall back any further, it's just gonna be another street.
Do I look like I run this bitch? Spuru spat back, jumping over the still burning turret of the half-track that had been blown into the street. Zanya rolled her goggle-covered eyes as she low ran into their next gunnery point.
All I'm saying is that if we don't get some armor here soon, they will.
Spuru slammed the MG3 down, then got behind it. Ah, cripes, don't remind me. Limerick, who was crouched down nearby, pulled back onto a rope until it was taut, the rest of it tied to the rings of multiple grenades he had set up before the attack had begun. His other hand held a radio receiver to his long ear.
We are being overrun. We have no armor and barely any heavy weapons left.
You need to hang on longer. If you fold and run, you leave the armor we sent in a kill zone in the street. You will hold that square under any circumstances. Came the crackled reply of command, and even there Limerick could hear the crack of gunfire.
Hang on longer? If we stay here any longer, there's going to be no one left to relieve.
Limerick shouted, holding the receiver in front of his face as he yelled into it. Your location has been identified as an anvil. You will hold there, or we all die. Out. Limerick yelled in frustration as he threw the receiver against the rubble in front of him, then kicked the radio over with his boot.
You've got to be shitting me.
What's shitting ya?
Eldehinda called out to him as other riflemen and machine gunners fell back to their secondary firing positions. In her fists, Helena was still wailing and Momoy coughed blood up onto his chin.
They're telling us to hold here or else everyone dies.
Limerick cried out, ripping back on the rope. Eldehinda raised a brow, spitting out a gob of blood that had formed in her mouth from a missing tooth.
Well then, no pressure.
My fucking eyes!
Helena wailed as more blood trickled down her hands and face, and even with Eldehinda dragging her, she still kicked and writhed in pain.
There's metal in my eyes!
Quit your squalling. We're almost to the medics.
Eldehinda puffed, dragging the 2 over to the now not burning but turretless half-track.
Oi, medical sergeant, see ya.
The satyr lifted her head, blood flecked onto her face and horns as she tied off the combat tourniquet on Anoni's leg.
Little busy here.
We're all busy. I got 2 more.
Eldehinda barked, setting down Helena and Momoy in front of her. Eldehinda pulled out a hand-rolled cigarette from her shoulder pocket, blew off some fluff, then tucked it between her lips.
Your medics got any juice left?
We've called in some more personnel who are topped off.
Medical Sergeant Seha said with a sigh, ripping off the plate carrier Momoy wore with 2 quick cuts of a long blade. She ran her hands over him, then nodded.
Plate caught one, but the other snuck into his ribs. I'll hit to heal this one lest it collapses. What's wrong with the other?
Eldehinda lit the cigarette and kneeled down to the still writhing Helena.
Come here, Elf. Let me see your face.
If the eyes are intact, she'll be fine with the potion.
Seha murmured, shoving 2 of her fingers into Momoy's entry wound. Momoy gave a strained, silent yell, clenching his fists.
Holy fuck.
Am I blind? Are my eyes gone?
Helena said in a muted scream, still clutching her face. Eldehinda clucked her teeth, her mind still cool despite the reignition of machine gun fire and the rippling explosions of Limerick's grenade trap going off.
I can't damn well tell without getting your hands out of the way.
Helena rapidly panted in anguish as Eldehinda slowly pulled her hands away, and the dwarfess clucked her teeth again.
Oh, they got you good, didn't they?
Am I okay? Am I alright?
Helena hissed out, blinking her one good eye. Thankfully for Helena, she could not see the lie plastered across Eldehinda's stone-set face. The dwarfess blinked a few times and drew a puff in, blowing it out her nose.
Yeah, you're all right. Here, let's get you healed. See ya, could you?
Moment.
Siha replied, pulling her fingers from Momoy's chest with a wet pop.
There you go, troop. Hole is already closing.
You had your fingers in me. I felt you wiggling them.
Momoy grunted out with a pained gasp, his fingers numbly trying to find the slowly closing hole in his chest.
Okay, let's... Oh,
Siha said, turning on her hoof to see the mess of Helena's face.
which is your shooting eye, Helena?
Of course you know her name.
Eldehinda said with a toothy grin, puffing on her cigarette. Helena blinked at the blood and flesh in her good and ruined eyes.
I'm a right eye. Right eye. I used my right.
Good.
Siha said with a nod.
We have yet to get the damaged one out. I can't afford to have it interfering with the heal. The flesh is too traumatized. Private, medical scoop, morphine, and 3 strongs.
Yes, Sergeant.
A nearby Yamato medic called out, already handing her the scoop and then running off to grab the rest.
Get the damaged one out. Heal them both. Heal my eyes.
Helena screamed, suddenly lurching to feel at her face. Eldehinda grunted, grabbing both of Helena's hands and pinning them to the elf's stomach.
Gods be damned, Helena. Don't touch your face.
I need my eyes.
Helena screamed, kicking and thrashing in Eldehinda's grasp.
You can't take my eyes. I need them. Just heal my eyes. I can go back to fighting. I promise.
Hold her still.
Medical Sergeant Siha murmured, reaching behind her and taking one of the morphine needles the private handed to her. She looked down at the label.
Northern Trace Manufacture. It's gonna have some goofy juice, unlike the others. Normally I'd be annoyed, but this may help her.
Eldehinda squinted at the needle as Siha jabbed Helena in the arm.
Northern Trace. Must be the one by the clear.
Major Clear? Yeah. No contract.
Siha answered as she squeezed down on the pipette, sending soothing nothingness into Helena's body.
My eyes. Please.
Helena whispered, clutching onto Siha's sleeve. Her one good eye was filled with tears and terror, the other a rent mass of flesh and metal.
Find Callie. She heals. Please.
Siha stared down at Helena with the eyes of someone detached from emotion, the mind simply set on to the task at hand.
Callie is with the Lone Wanderers. She cannot get here in time.
Helena's grip weakened partially from despair, but mostly from the morphine surging through her system.
Please don't. Please.
Hold her firmly. This is going to hurt. I'm going to hold her nervous system so she doesn't thrash too much. Morphine should take the brunt of it all.
Siha said matter-of-factly, then used her offhand to cradle Helena around the back of her neck. Helena felt the magic hit her like a sledgehammer, and she went limp, her head lolling in the satyr's hand. She could not speak, but in her mind she screamed in horror as to what was coming.
Oh, Helena. I am so sorry.
Eldehinda murmured around her cigarette, looking down at the elf with pity.
Momoy, don't sit up. Just lay there for a bit.
No worries. Line is stabilizing. Flight of Himalaya came in and is giving the company down our street hell.
Momoy said with another cough, pointing a finger towards the sounds of screams and harpy war cries.
Have to get the tissue out or else it will try to heal itself. I need all the magic going into her face and other eye.
Siha said, rotating the medical scoop this way and that before bringing it down to Helena's eye. Helena gave a single jerk of the legs and hands as the bladed scoop scraped into her socket, pulling and severing away whatever was left of her ruined eye. Tears poured down her other eye, the morphine only barely keeping the pain at bay.
Part of her ear sight is by her nose.
Eldehinda murmured, letting go with a sigh for a brief moment to point out the jagged outcrop of metal. Siha flung the remnants of Helena's eye out and away into the rubble.
I saw it.
Helena felt the scoop dig and clear away a few more bits of her eye, then felt the dull click of metal being pulled from her face. She looked past the faces of Siha and Eldehinda, watching the clouds, the blue sky, and the drifting trails of fires.
Can our body push the rest out?
Eldehinda asked, still holding Helena's hands. Siha nodded, hooking a thumb into Helena's empty eye socket and cupping Helena's good side with her other hand.
Yes, the flesh will push out the rest of the shards. She'll be combat able in a few minutes. I'll heal the rest of her eyelid back together, so that way she can easily hide the empty socket.
Helena whimpered in her throat, the sound barely audible, but the healing magic flooded through the fingers of Siha into her. She felt, painlessly thanks to the morphine, metal pushing past her skin and tinkling down onto the cobblestones under her. She felt her ruined eye do something odd, but the vision in her good eye cleared perfectly, both Siha and Eldehinda coming into sharp clarity. Eldehinda nodded, spitting out the rest of her cigarette.
She looks normal except for the eye missing and those little scar lines. Do you have a patch?
Helena blinked both her eyes. They seemed to feel normal, but not quite right.
We have leather head wraps with eye plates.
Siha murmured, reaching over and grabbing one from the private who had hurried over with one in his hand. Helena recognized the design, popular with archers and cavalrymen due to the secure double ear loop and a single head strap. The eye plate was a single layer of layered steel with Oni Kevlar, the shine muted by the matte layer of olive drab green in the Veil Rider unit emblem.
Here we go. Get that around you.
Eldehinda said in a hushed attempt at a soothing voice, wrapping the patch around Helena's head. She looked to Siha.
Will there be any pain?
She will have phantom pains when the morphine wears off and the body catches up, but no pain.
Siha said, wiping her hands with a nearby bloody rag and then moving off to check up on the rest of her wounded troopers.
You okay, Elf?
Eldehinda said softly, pulling Helena up into a sitting position and cradling her.
Don't worry, you'll be fine. You're so good of a shot you don't even need that left one.
Helena blinked, looked over to Eldehinda as movement and control slowly ebbed back into her nervous system. A tear slid down her cheek again, her lips trying to move. Momoi leaned up, tapping with his middle finger at the healed hole in his uniform.
Don't worry, Staff Sergeant. I'm okay too.
Oh, I know you're okay, you meathead.
Eldehinda snapped at him, still cradling Helena.
All you had was a lung ouchie.
Momoi went to speak to Helena, saw the look on the elfess's face, then cleared his throat.
I'll go get set up again. You look great, Helena, really. You can barely tell.
Helena closed her good eye, and her lips began to wrinkle as she regained the ability to fully cry. Eldehinda glowered at Momoi, who quickly grunted onto his feet, shuffling off towards the resetting fire line.
Is she okay?
Limik called out, now trying to repair the radio he kicked. Momoi looked over his shoulder with a flashing glance before setting off into a jog.
Yeah, she's fine.
Helena, you are fine. I have to go delegate positions. I'm going to leave you here with Sia for a minute, okay?
Eldehinda said, giving Helena a shake.
I'm going to need you on your game. No one saw that mortar team but you. Stay with us, Elf.
Without further word, Eldehinda propped Helena up on a nearby rucksack and ran off, shouting orders and gesturing where she wanted troopers. Helena drew in a shuddering breath as her hand slowly came back to life, and she raised it, feeling at her face with buzzing fingers. She felt the patch, the cool steel of the plate cover, then tucked a finger under, feeling at her eye. She felt the emptiness behind her lid and drunkenly pulled her hand away, slapping it against her lap. Helena sniffed, gave a short sob, then sniffed again, running a check of her body as she wiggled all her toes and fingers. She could not fully move yet, but this alone cheered her up a small measure.
All my fingers are still here. Can still draw a bow.
Helena said numbly, and she heard a small sound of wood on stone beside her. She blinked, then looked down to the left side. The bow was laying there, fully strung along with her leg harness.
Where did...
Helena whispered, reaching over with a barely feeling, shaking hand.
Not where I left you.
She touched the wood with her fingers, and they instantly warmed, humming with the bow. Helena smiled, giving it a little pat with her index finger.
How'd you fare? It looks like I'm only half vision.
Helena asked it, and the bow hummed happily into her fingers.
Good. Rifle is dead. They shot it.
Helena slowly and awkwardly dragged the bow into her lap, whispering more to herself than to the bow, shock working its way into her brain.
Better get ready. May have to go to work soon.
With shaking fingers that felt as if she had been sleeping on them, Helena got her leg harness mostly onto her leg. She fumbled with her belt hitch for a few minutes, but stopped when the cry went up.
Limerick?
Helena asked quietly, squinting her good eye and looking around vaguely.
Abrams! Staff Sergeant Abrams in the street.
Limerick howled, running back from setting up more traps with a few other riflemen. The building beside Helena shuddered, and she saw a dust plume filter through the broken windows.
There's a fucking Abrams. Mamoy, grab the belcher.
Eldehinda cried out amongst a throng of other voices. Helena blinked, looked down at her belt, and hooked it together in one go.
Gotcha.
A loud thump was heard, a cracking boom, then Mamoy's voice caught her ears.
No effect. It just ate the heat round like it was nothing.
Try again, damn it. Aim for the tracks.
Eldehinda called out. Helena tried to get to her feet, but fell back onto her ass with a grunt.
Why aren't my stupid legs working?
Another high explosive round hit the building next to Helena, and it shuddered again, this time sagging in the middle.
No effect on tracks.
Mamoy roared.
1 round left.
Aim for the gun or something.
Eldehinda screamed.
Abrams approaching Anvil.
Limerick yelled into his receiver, but Helena couldn't hear what was coming through.
Let's get our act together, legs. Come on now.
Helena muttered, shakily getting up into a crouching position despite her wobbly knees. She felt the street under her boots shaking with the approach of the Abrams, as well as something else she couldn't quite place further behind her. The building shuddered once more with another strike and began to fall inside itself, the noise deafening as timber, glass, stone, and roof fell apart, crushing down and out an avalanche of rubble. Helena heard another salvo of the Belcher launch and impact.
Nothing. It did nothing. We have to run.
Mamoy bellowed, and Helena heard the Belcher bounce off the street with a hollow sound.
We can't run, you fool. It'll just catch us.
Limerick called back. Eldehinda's voice echoed out from the others.
Fuck's sake. You 5, prepare grenades. Spuru, keep the infantry off of us when it rounds the corner.
Building is coming down the wrong way. We'll be exposed, someone called out, and Helena watched the building. It leaned outwards now, crushing against the other building of the square and opening a hole in their cover. Helena could even see the tan armor of the Abrams now. As a matter of fact, she could see all of the Abrams, and she wobbly stood up.
Sheesh. They look even meaner up close.
Helena turned as a rush of wings came down behind her.
Helena, silly elf, run!
Oh, hey, Vitka.
Helena said absent-mindedly, turning slightly to see a very wet Vitka.
Did you take a bath?
Vitka fighting in fountain, but come on.
Vitka cried out, reaching over to pull on Helena with her strong wing claws. All this accomplished was dragging Helena off balance, both of them falling over into the street.
What in fuck, Helena? Vitka, did Helena know I is missing?
Vitka said, suddenly caught off guard and looking at Helena's shield plate.
Oh, I got blown up and lost my eye.
Helena slurred, still fighting past morphine.
Huh. Cool.
Vitka said in surprise, then looked up.
Oh, fuck.
Helena looked up and the Abrams had rolled to a halt only 100 yards away down the street.
Oh, that's not good.
Have to get away. Helena, come on. Come. Vitka, carry.
Vitka cried out, scrambling out from under Helena with a rush of wing feathers and gear.
Vitka, is the ground still shaking?
Helena asked as Vitka lifted her in a bear hug from behind. Vitka spluttered around Helena's ruined braid.
Yes, ground shake, Helena. Think Odie shake ground.
But the tank's not moving.
Helena murmured with a squint, watching as the Abrams turret slowly spun and the top hatch opened. Vitka laughed nervously as she dragged Helena backwards towards cover.
Tank not moving? Very funny, Helena.
But as she spoke, Vitka's backward steps slowed as the vibrations from the street grew more violent, and Vitka looked around.
Wait. Vitka, feel it now. Armor. Enemy tank coming?
It feels like it's behind us, though.
Helena said, and she craned her neck, attempting to look around Vitka's ample but blood-speckled chest.
Get out of the street. Get out of the street. They're not stopping for shit.
Limerick yelled, running over and dragging a limping Valley Elf rifleman over his cover with a jerk of the uniform top. Helena saw the barrel of the first tank loom around the corner, the rest of the tank seeming to slide as the tread sped blindingly fast.
What? That's not a Stug at all.
The gun fired, the round rippling down the street and blowing reactive plating away from the Abrams as if someone had puffed on a kitten mane. Another tank of the same design pelted around the corner, this one bearing a huge dozer plate. It slammed into the rubble of the ruined building and instantly constructed a defilade, its own gun firing as well. The little turrets on top of the main tank turret spun and spat out machine gun fire, tracing along the infantry who were now quickly ducking back into buildings or behind the now retreating Abrams.
Whoa, those things are neat.
Helena said with a dazed smile as Vitka continued dragging her backwards.
They're tan like the Abrams, did you notice? They're also wearing the same little plates of armor.
Vitka puffed in aggravation.
Very interesting. Vitka, be sure to find out later if alive.
Helena eyed the odd black V mark on the turret armor and cocked her head. Around the corner, more armor sped into view. These were far less impressive, looking more like tan boxes than anything else. As they skidded to a stop, ramps dropped and both human soldiers and auxiliaries poured out, sprinting towards firing positions. A larger human trotted out of the lead tan box vehicle, his Valley Elf radio man trotting behind him. Negative, no effect on target. Our heat rounds may not be able to get past the front armor. We'll aim for the barrel. Get me Death Dozer, Private.
Yes, sir. You're on him.
The human nodded. Death Dozer, aim for that motherfucker's barrel before he splits your lip with the sabot.
Wow, he speaks Tunka really well.
Helena said with a laugh, even noticing he had the twang of some local dialect from the north. Vitka and Helena fell back with an oof as an answering reply from the Abrams hit the lead human tank, the sabot round glancing and whistling into a nearby building with a rattle of torn armor plating. The two tanks barked back, and the barrel of the Abrams shattered into pieces. Copy, I see it. Good effect on target. Aim for the tracks and get us a mobility kill. Suppress infantry and don't let them leave the kill zone. The accented human said into his own receiver, hefting an older looking but well kept M16A2. He handed his radio man the receiver, then jogged towards the squads of infantry now firing on the advance. Set up in those buildings and get me a crossfire into that street. Stack them up 2 floors and make sure no one slips through any walls.
Sergeant First Class! They're in those buildings on the top floors!
Eldehinda called out, crouching over Zarnia who was laying on the street, unconscious once again. The human nodded, kneeling down near the dozer plate bearing tank and taking back the receiver. Butcher put some Willie Pete in the top floors of the building with the flower decorations. Helena, now fascinated, crawled away from Vitka.
Helena, get that with Vitka.
Vitka cried out, angrily cursing and scrabbling out of her cover to crawl after the elf. Helena watched the turret unlock and whir as it spun, thudding to a stop and then firing with an ear-splitting crack. The top floor exploded in white smoke with little motes of orange flame cascading down to the street. One more. The human said to the receiver, then handed it back to his radio man. The cannon boomed again, and a fire was beginning to form where the white smoke plumed. Helena saw the humans now more clearly as she awkwardly crawled closer with her bow. They wore not the odd, smudged, patterned uniforms of the humans on the Chosen Children's side, but solid tan ones with large splotches of dark brown. Then all over there were little motes of black and white, always overlapping.
Oh, how cool.
Helena said with a high giggle as the tank turret spun again, firing another round of the quickly retreating Abrams. Vitka came down on top of Helena with a panting curse.
Helena, ballsacks, get back in cover with Vitka.
Look, Vitka, their ears.
Helena said with another laugh, pointing to a nearby human rifleman who was firing past the treads of the human tank.
They have tan lines.
Tan line?
Vitka said confused and squinted over the top of Helena's head.
Little white line on top of ear?
Helena laughed, rolling onto her back and dragging Vitka with her, the harpy calling out again angrily.
Helena, stop. Exposed in street.
Vitka, grab her other arm and we'll drag her.
Makarat yelled, running out from where she was hunkered down and grabbing onto one of Helena's hands.
Makarat watching entire time?
Vitka said in an accusing tone, grabbing Helena's other hand. Makarat rolled her eyes.
It wasn't safe till now.
Makarat, look at their ears. They've been in hiding.
Helena laughed again, trying to point at the humans.
What are you on about, you loon?
Makarat growled, pulling Helena behind cover with Vitka's help. However, with Helena giggling and snorting, Makarat leaned her head around to view these humans in their odd camo. She heard two yelling at each other and her eyebrows lifted abruptly.
Whoa. Whoa. Wait a minute. Is that a Wheaton accent?
Helena cackled highly, slapping Vitka on the thigh.
Look at their ears. Their ears.
They take part of your brain with that eye or something? Morphine should have worn off by now after healing.
Makarat said, annoyed, but squinted through a borrowed rifle scope. Indeed, Makarat could see distinct tan lines along the ears of the humans. All the humans. She looked from the laughing Helena to the humans and squinted an eye.
That's impossible. There's no way! How does an entire battle group of humans just go unnoticed? With careful planning.
Helena looked over her shoulder to see a female Valioff wearing the same oddly patterned camo as the humans, her face kind and smiling.
Oh, hi.
The Valioff woman laughed.
My, you are quite chipper. She's high off her gourd on morphine.
Makarat said with a grimace, looking from Helena to the woman.
Are you part of them?
She nodded.
I am one of the healers. These are 3rd Battalion's lost sons. Well, technically I'm a wife. So are they.
She gestured towards more female Valley Elves pouring out of another tan box, all bearing healers' bags and running towards the casualty collection point.
What in the fuck?
Makarat said flatly, her face screwed up in confusion. The woman placed a finger to her lips.
Loose lips sink ships. What does that even mean?
Makarat shouted after her as she jogged away.
How the hell is any of this even possible? How does this many humans and tanks hide for so long?
Through marine ingenuity, I guess.
Limmick said, running over the top of their rubble cover and sliding down next to them.
2 entire M60s and 5 M113s. How in the heavens did they manage to upkeep them?
A mystery I'm sure we won't be privy to for a while.
Makarat said flatly as the M60's cannon barked again and something down the street exploded.
I do, however, appreciate not being the only target for a bit.
I wonder if any of these fellows were at 73 Easting. Would be fascinating to hear about.
Limmick said, his eyes bright as she watched the humans in action.
It's actually quite ironic. You see, the Abrams were designed to replace the M60, but they wouldn't give any to the Marines, so
Limmick?
Makarat said, raising her eyebrows.
they instead upgraded these to use. Gave them all new armor packages, new fire control systems, and
Limmick!
Makarat shouted, reaching out with a boot and kicking the Adorned in the shoulder.
Oh, what?
Limmick shouted, whirling around to glare at Makarat. Helena patted Vitka on her leg.
He's just excited. Don't get mad at him, Makarat.
Helena, that is Vitka's leg.
Vitka said with a snort.
Helena get hit on head?
Where is Eldehinda and Mamoy?
Makarat asked, watching as Spuru and a few other auxiliaries carried Zanya to one of the rearmost M113s. Limmick shook his head, the grenade pull rings in his horns tinkling.
Oh, right. They're getting debriefed, and we're getting sent back to command to rest. Also, what is up with Helena? Shouldn't the morphine have worn off by now?
Do you think there will be soup, Vitka?
Helena said, still clutching her bow and looking over to Makarat as if to illustrate Limmick's point. Vitka leaned towards Makarat.
Makarat have any more of what Helena got? Seems like fun.
Oh, stop.
Makarat growled, reaching down to help Helena stand.
Let's get it away they're taking Zonia. Something might be wrong. Limmick, grab a bow.
Limmick reached over and grabbed the bow, but Helena turned towards him, ripping the bow away from his hands with a snarl.
Don't touch my bow!
Makarat and Limmick stepped back as Helena curled her lip and wrinkled her nose in her snarl, looking almost feral.
Whoa, okay, I won't touch the bow.
Limmick said cautiously, holding up his hands in a placating manner.
No one is gonna take your bow. My bad.
Makarat stared at Helena, then flicked her eyes to the Hungarian horsebow clutched in her hand.
I think I've figured out how she hasn't burned through all the morphine yet.
Can Vitka touch bow?
Vitka said eagerly, looking around Helena's shoulder and making grabby claws at the bow clutched in Helena's hand. Helena nodded and Vitka grabbed it with a giggle. When nothing happened, Vitka blew a raspberry.
Vitka feel nothing.
Makarat continued to lock eyes with Helena, who stared back silently with her one good eye.
Perhaps not for a certain reason.
Oi, you lot!
Eldehinda called out, striding up with Momoy as the gunfire intensified in this main part of the square.
We're officially relieved. We took a lot of casualties and are being cycled back to rest and eat. We're hopping in one of these tan box things here for a ride.
Eldehinda stopped mid-step, bringing her eyebrows together as she immediately read the room, or defilade vibe if that fit the bill better.
Helena, we alright?
Helena glared over to Eldehinda, her single eye glowing for a single moment before doling back down to its normal dark green hue. She swallowed, looked down at the bow in her hand, then shook her head.
Yeah, I'm alright.
Okay, good. Well, let's get a boxy seat in these boxy trucks and box our way to base.
Eldehinda said, walking by Helena with a wary step. Vitka stepped after Eldehinda, waggling her wings back and forth as she spoke.
Box? Box, 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 box.
After you.
Makarat said, gesturing for Helena to walk ahead. Helena glared at Makarat but stepped forward, falling in behind Momoy, who had a slight limp. Makarat waited for a moment, then turned to Limik.
Something's wrong with that bow, Limik.
You're telling me. I just tried to touch it and she looked like she was about to chew my face off.
Limik replied, hefting up his radio and turning to watch the M60s in action. Makarat was instead watching Helena load into the M113.
Do you think we should report it?
We can't.
Limik said matter-of-factly, smiling broadly as the turrets tracked a target and fired at the same time.
It is a gift from Grouch. To call it into question would be to call him into question, which no one will do.
Makarat hummed in her throat.
That doesn't bode well. What if they brought over a cursed item? Obviously they have access to Starla. They could have figured out a way to make some kind of combat thrall.
Grouch doesn't seem like the sort. Come on, let's get loaded up. We can weave conspiracies later.
Limik said, stepping over towards the M113's ramp. Makarat watched him walk away. She looked back at the active combat zone, at the ruined homes and stores, then began to slowly step her way after Limik, hefting her rifle in aggravation. And that's the end of chapter 12. Thank you for listening. If you like the story and want to help out the channel, there's a Ko-fi link down below where you can give $1 or $5, whatever you all want to give. YouTube hates my fucking guts for some fucking reason, and they hate giving me money. I've had so many of the videos be limited, despite being green and greenlit for the first couple days. I don't know why they do this. It's honestly really annoying, but folks who donate to the Ko-fi or buy from Redcon 1 or buy stickers from the Ko-fi store, you help out immensely paying the VAs and keeping this thing worth doing, As long as the VAs get paid, I'm happy. That's the main part, is making sure the VAs get paid. Because it's hard out here for amateur VAs, let me tell you. Like I said before, Jesus Christ. Like I said before, down below, your Discord link, Ko-fi links, book links on Amazon if you want to buy a book, always helpful too. Links to the VA's channels and pages. And until we see you next time on this side of the veil, that was Eliza, that was Amanda, that was Fire, that was Heuristic Rider, that was Vin, that was Danger, that was Dusty Parch, or Sweet Bell Dam, our senior VA, that was RB Sounds, and this is Garbro's Field Desk.